The manifest said it plainly. 1 standard kennel crate, 81 kilos, marked companion, NON combatant. I logged it into the receiving system at Dock 7 the same way I log everything. Weight, origin, handler name, clearance tier. I did not flag it. I did not add a note. The manifest said what it said, and I am a warrant logistics technician second class, not a risk assessor. What I am is a man who has worked the cargo and personnel receiving desk at Varel Station's joint arrival facility for 11 years. I have signed off on live warbirds, hibernating apex fauna in transport suspension, one incident involving a crate of Dreschken fire slugs that I still do not discuss, and every variant of alien dignitary that the Coalition has seen fit to root through the sector. I have met the extraordinary so many times that I have lost the ability to find it interesting before it is already over. Cadet Nola Voss was not extraordinary looking. She was 23, medium height, wearing the plain grey fatigues of a cross-posting transfer, no unit patch yet on the left shoulder, new boots still showing creases, a single duffel slung over one arm. The only thing that made her notable on approach was the leash. The leash was heavy canvas, sewn double, with a carabiner clipped the width of my thumb. It ran from her left hand down to a harness on an English mastiff that came up past her hip and weighed, I would later confirm, 87 kilos in his undercoat. The manifest had said 81. Rex had apparently put on weight during transit. He was fawn-coloured, loose-jowled, with a black mask across his muzzle and eyes so dark they absorbed the dock lighting without giving any of it back. He moved the way his breed always moves, unhurried, front feet rolling out slightly, big shoulders dropping and rising like something that has decided, long ago, that urgency is beneath it. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the room. I processed Voss's credentials, stamped the transit paperwork, and told her the temporary billet assignment. She thanked me, clipped Rex's transit tag to his harness collar, and turned toward the inner corridor. That was when the Thraxa delegation arrived. I knew they were Thraxi before I saw the robes because I heard the footfall, 8 of them, heavy, the click of reinforced boot soles against the dock plate in a rhythm that most species learn to get out of the way of. The Thraxi are 7 feet on average, bilaterally symmetric but with a third joint in the upper limb that makes their gesture vocabulary unsettling to species that don't share it. They are a high-gravity world by Coalition standards. Not Death World rated, technically, but close enough that most facility protocols flag their access group as a yellow caution tier. Their lead security officer was named, I later learned, Assessor Vec Tan Roll. I did not know that at the time. At the time I knew him as the one in front, the tallest, with a platinum-threaded sash across his chest plate that indicated mid-senior authority in their caste hierarchy, and the particular posture of a being that has never once needed to consider whether something in its immediate environment was larger than it was. He walked around Voss and Rex the way you walk around furniture. Not hostile. Just decisive about the fact that they were not in his category of concern. One of his subordinates, younger, I guessed, based on the lack of the platinum thread, said something in Thraxa to the others. I speak passable Thraxi. What he said, roughly, was, they've brought a ground slug. The laughter from the delegation was the quiet kind. The kind that knows it doesn't need to announce itself. Voss stopped walking. I want to be precise about what I observed, because I have filed this as a formal incident report and I intend to be consistent. Cadet Voss did not turn around. She did not raise her voice. She did not reach for anything. She stood with her duffel on one shoulder and the leash in her left hand, facing the inner corridor door, and she said, quietly and without particular inflection, "Easy, Rex." Rex had already turned. I did not see him turn. I became aware that he was facing the delegation the way you become aware of a change in air pressure, not because of the thing itself, but because everything adjacent to it adjusted. The dock was a large space. It had 40 meters of floor between the receiving desk and the inner corridor. Rex was approximately in the middle, which meant he was about 20 meters from the Thraxa delegation and 20 meters from the door Voss was pointing herself toward. He was sitting. That is the detail I keep returning to. He had positioned himself between Voss and the delegation and he was sitting, not crouched, not braced, not showing anything that read as aggression in the technical sense. He was just sitting, facing 8 Thraxa security personnel, with his jawskin hanging loose and his dark eyes going from face to face with the methodical patience of something that is doing math. Assessor Vec Tan Roll stopped walking. I have seen the Thraxi assessor grade stop for exactly one other category of thing in my 11 years at this desk, and that is when they encounter another assessor grade. It is a dominance acknowledgement behavior, or something close to it, A recognition that the thing in front of them has a classification that their body knows before their mind finishes the sentence. Vecca's third limb joint came down. That is their version of a lowered guard. The subordinate who had made the ground slug comment had gone quiet. Not obviously. He had simply become interested in a cargo manifest on a tablet he had not been holding 30 seconds earlier. 4 seconds. I counted. It was a habit from the fire slug incident. When you work receiving, you learn to timestamp the things that may require documentation later. 4 seconds from Voss saying easy, Rex to the delegation having redistributed itself spatially in a way that placed 3 additional meters between the nearest Thraxi and the dog. Rex blinked. He looked back at Voss. He stood up, no rush, front end coming up first, that big shoulder roll, and turned back toward the corridor door and walked to her left side and sat again. Voss resumed walking. Vectan roll, to his credit, processed that moment with more composure than most beings manage. He came to my desk 3 minutes later, after his delegation had cleared through the secondary check, and he asked me in careful coalition standard what classification the Earth animal carried. I told him it was logged as companion, non combatant per the transfer manifest. He looked at me for a moment. That is the manifest classification, he said. Yes, I said. He looked toward the corridor door, which had closed behind Voss and Rex approximately 2 minutes prior. What, he said, carefully, is the operational classification? I told him that was above my desk tier and that he was welcome to file a query with the Coalition Animal Liaison Office, Form 7-Companion, processing time 4 to 6 standard weeks. I gave him the form number twice because Thraxi assessors appreciate numerical precision. He filed the query. I know because the Animal Liaison Office sent me a courtesy copy of the acknowledgement 3 weeks later, which is not standard protocol, which means someone over there found the situation interesting enough to loop me in informally. I have worked here 11 years. The liaison office has never sent me a courtesy copy of anything. The formal response, when it came, listed Rex, registered name Rexford Voss, Earthbreed English Mastiff, age 4, handler cadet Nola Voss, as a Tier 1 companion asset under the Coalition's Auxiliary Assessment Framework. The document contained 16 pages. I read all of them. 12 of those pages were the protocol for what to do if a Tier 1 companion asset was encountered in a contested facility. The short version was, do not provoke, do not separate from handler, provide adequate billet space, do not make comments about ground slugs. That last one is not in the document. That is my addendum. What is in the document, on page 3, is the Coalition's own weight and capacity summary for the English Mastiff as a species. I am not going to quote it verbatim. What I will say is that I have stood next to a Thraxi assessor, and I have stood next to Rex, and the document confirmed what Vec Tarnroll's body had apparently already concluded on its own in Doc 7. I asked Voss about it a week later. She had her billets sorted by then, a standard junior NCO room, a little larger than spec, because the billet coordinator had apparently decided independently that Rex required the extra floor space. Voss was drinking bad station coffee in the common corridor outside the room. Rex was lying across the doorway with his chin on his forepaws, watching the corridor traffic with that same unhurried arithmetic in his eyes. I asked her how long she had had him. She said since he was 10 weeks old. I asked if she had specifically acquired him for. I paused, because I was not quite sure how to finish the sentence. She finished it for me. For the job. She shook her head. She said her grandmother had bred mastiffs for 40 years on a farm in the hill country of a province I had not heard of. She said Rex was from the last litter her grandmother had whelped before she got too old to manage the property, and that when Voss had left for the academy her grandmother had loaded Rex into the cab of her truck and driven 4 hours to the transit station and handed her the leash through the window. She said her grandmother had called him a working dog, and that this description was not wrong. I asked if Rex knew what he was. Voss looked at the mastiff in the doorway. Rex was watching a pair of Dreschken maintenance techs wheel a cart past in the corridor. The Dreschken are a 7-limb species and they move with a skittering speed that most mammals find instinctively alarming. Rex watched them pass without changing his chin-on-paws posture, then went back to the general survey. He knows what he is, Voss said. He's always known. That's kind of the whole thing. She drank her coffee. I went back to my desk and updated the facility's internal asset registry, which is a document I maintain separately from the Coalition official manifest system because 11 years at a receiving desk teaches you that the manifest system is optimistic and the internal registry is true. Under Rex's entry, I changed the classification field from companion, non combatant to companion, Tier 1, And in the notes field I wrote, handler Voss, Nola, English Mastiff, Fawn, Black Mask, 87 kilograms undercoat, 4 seconds, Doc 7, no incident. No incident is the correct notation. Nothing happened. A delegation laughed. A dog sat down. Everybody recalculated. Vectan Roll submitted a second query to the liaison office 6 days after the first, requesting information on the Earth Mastiff breed's historical deployment record and average pack size in a field context. I know because the liaison office sent me that courtesy copy as well. I did not know, before this, that a Thraxi assessor in the mid-senior grade was capable of something that looked, from a distance, like being careful. I updated my internal registry again. Under the notes for Doc 7 I added one line, Thraxi assessor, platinum sash, third joint down, query filed same day, followed up day 6. The last line I added simply said, they learn. Rex, the morning I wrote that, was asleep in the corridor outside Voss's door, taking up approximately 2/3 of the walkable floor space. Maintenance techs, security personnel, and 2 separate visiting diplomats had stepped over or around him for 3 hours without incident and without, as far as I observed, anyone suggesting he be moved. The corridor traffic had developed, on its own, a slight natural curve around his position. He slept through all of it.